Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning, everybody. Still not home, not at the home studio. Jim, were you asleep?
Oh, is it time to start the morning show? Is it Monday?
Let me tell you how I have zero sympathy.
You had a rough and short night, didn't you?
Had a rough and short night. I made it to Twin Falls last night after a funeral of a family friend, and just interesting stuff. It's interesting how the conversations that were going on about, I think we can go the whole way through. It's like, no, I just wanted to drive so many hours, and then we're getting close to where we were going to stop last night, and I said, I think it seems like we haven't been on the road very long at all, so I think let's just go through and get to Twin, and that was about 9 hours of driving.
Mhm.
And 10 minutes after we went past that exit, I was like, I made the wrong choice. So
Yeah.
it is not fun to drive through mountain passes where there's lots of twisty turnies and steep inclines and declines when it's dark.
And you're getting fatigued.
And I'm tired. So I thought to myself, no amount of money saving on a hotel room is worth that kind of white.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yep.
But I'm here and I'm safe, and I've just a couple hours to drive to be back home. And so when you guys see me on Wednesday, I will be back in the studio.
Excellent.
With my sweet.
Yeah. Good. Glad you're almost home. So it sounds like it's been a good trip, though tiring.
Really, spending time with family is just awesome. I'm really grateful. But
well, some families are better than others, but yeah. I'm kidding.
I love mine.
It's a joke, Mom. It's a joke. Listen, we should get down to our topic of the day, you think?
Yeah, I think.
Today we wanted to tackle, kind of hot topics and questions that come up from Facebook. We, this is a regular thing. This Michelle and I have talked about. This is where a lot of our topics come from anyway, topic ideas and kind of whatever the popular thread is of the week. And a handful, in the last week or so. And so I just thought we'd take on some of those. Do you have a one in particular that you have as a favorite?
I look through. It's social media is a curse and a blessing.
Mhm.
So I spend some time going through, and Jim and I, even when we're apart, talk about the stuff during the day. It's like, so have you seen this or da 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 da? And there's a lot of, repos are always high on the list. About insurance checks and things like that are always pretty high on the list. And one of the things that Jim and I really we get asked questions all the time, and it's amazing how many times there's the answers. It's kind of a dangerous thing. And I know, we were talking about this just a few minutes ago. It's a dangerous thing to throw out the advice from your perspective, because your perspective is laced with different rules, laws, business plans, all of the things that, and it may work for you, but it could be really detrimental to another dealer who gets bad advice because it doesn't fit with their business plan, with their state laws, with a lot of things like that.
Yeah, I think that's the part that we see, and I know we're not alone. We talk to other, people with experience in the industry, a lot of dealers who, kind of shake their head about some of the stuff that happens out there on Facebook, and it's a kind of a social media generation, if you will. Like people are learning a lot from social media, and that's wonderful. I think that the problem is, as you said, is it's mixed information. Sometimes it's incomplete information, and people are all too quick to offer their opinions, and often you're getting experience or
And,
getting.
I loved the gratitude of, as I've read because it's
Yeah,
so helpful.
that's true.
And it's just, that we need to be careful.
Yeah, well, sometimes, and it can be very helpful. A lot of people get some great information. It's just that they have to
Yes.
sort through information that's coming from people who might not have as much experience as you do and might not recognize that the advice they're giving is very state specific. Like that's the one I see quite a bit that, we're not attorneys over here and we certainly don't know all the stuff in every state, but we know there are certain things that are driven by state
Which
regulations.
is a beautiful segue into just join your state association. And if you don't have a state association that's active, you can reach out to your national association
Yeah.
and get state, or get more specific, or they can put you in contact with people in your state that can give you good information.
Yeah. And I think for today, we can focus more on, business model stuff. As Michelle said about the
Yeah.
state association, a lot of the state associations and the national have, legal resources as part of your membership. And so it would be important to get that. Some of these things are of a legal nature, right? A lot of the things that we see out there have legal ramifications or implications. And so it's just important for folks to recognize that Facebook might not be your best resource for some of these specific questions. We see the same thing. There's a ton of stuff out on YouTube, but same thing. You can get into advice that is may not be aligned with your particular
Yeah.
business plan, but some of the questions that we saw, one of the ones that came up for me, and the ones I noted here and kind of threw in the description was, the thing about start or interrupt came up again. That's something that's also
Yeah.
can be state specific. Uh, Credit card, like
Process.
merchant fees, like
Uh,
the service fees, like
mhm.
that was a thread that people kind of threw around the thing about how much you're paying for fees, and that then so it went to how to recover those fees. And,
Mhm.
to me, it's in the context. One of the other big ones that came up is the question about inflation. Or, if somebody asked, or am I the only dealer out there who's dealing with a lot of people struggling with inflation? And of course, people shot back and said, no, it's widespread. It's, across the
Mhm.
country, people are dealing with um, high costs. And somebody made a point that I think is worth, bringing back to the topic, which is, we're in this post-COVID period, and a lot of customers got stuck in a COVID period with a really high car payment, and so now they have a high car
Mhm.
payment, now they have high fuel and groceries. So yeah, it's definitely, a thing that we recognize is happening out there. But I think for me, the ones that we did a whole episode once on convenience fees, and it was a White Hat Wednesday topic. Should we charge the customer convenience fee? It's like, I just we don't need to rehash that whole thing, but I would just say that we should be careful about passing on all of our fees, all of our cost to the customer, because I think you want to price your program in a way that you don't have to nickel and dime, so to speak, because the customer's already short on nickels and dimes, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we
That's
just gotta be
true.
careful about passing that along. And, I can't recall, there was a situation recently where I felt like, "Man, well, why am I getting nickeled and dimed on this stuff? Why not, it's so simple to just charge the fee, just charge me for the one price so I know what I'm
Mhm.
paying." And it
Mhm.
just comes across as, um, it comes across as, gouging a little bit when we're
Well,
asking
it's when you do that, when you're nickel and diming and there's this fee and this fee, and instead of just one thing, I think that's a lot easier for some of the state and national organizations to grab onto.
Yeah,
So we're seeing a lot of compliance issues, or not compliance, but f I, I've not had
can't
enough
help you,
coffee.
can't help you. I
With the federal
Oh, the
customer,
FP
FPB,
Oh,
whatever.
CFPB, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, they regulate a lot of
Sorry,
different.
everybody. I need to put that up here, but I haven't had enough coffee to remember CFPB.
Yeah, yeah,
But
and there are lots of
you know,
regulatory.
they're looking for, from what my perspective, when I'm watching what it is that people are talking about, and what I understand about some of the things that they're looking into, is it's very tied to what are all of the things that you're trying to get more, um, by, the nickel and diming, and it gets confusing too, for especially for people that are not fiscally educated.
Mhm.
And so it's very confusing. I think that, that there's, if you were to go somewhere and buy something and saw that there were 17 different fees, you'd go, heck no, let's talk about this. This can go away, this can go away, this can go away. Because that's, as being being understanding different uh law, or not law, but like loan, uh things that you can add on, and it's just like, yeah, these are not, it becomes a negotiating thing for people that understand it.
Yeah, but I think for me, I'm coming at it not so much from a regulatory standpoint and what's legal.
Mhm.
It's more for me, it's a question of, look, there are certain expenses that we have that are cost of doing business. And I'm going to tie this to the conversation that I saw on Facebook about down payment. So bear with me a minute. This conversation is an important one because we've seen the dealers' reports. We know what the interest income is. We know what the markup is. And so it really begs the question, if I just kind of sit in the shoes of a business, coach, or even if I go put a regulator hat on, it's like the question of, do you really need to charge these fees? But even if from a regulatory standpoint, forget that for a minute, your customer is already struggling. Why would we make it any more difficult for them to get the payment into us? And some of us have some pretty high car
Yeah,
payments. Why would we make it any more difficult? That's kind of was our theme when we talked about convenience fees. Like, why would we make it more difficult for the customer to pay? I would say if the customer can pay, I will happily, as a dealer, and this is everybody's business practice. I'm just saying, if it were my situation, I would say I will happily, um, absorb those merchant service fees and whatever else in the interest of, getting that payment in on time. So, dealers, I hear dealers talk about this, and look, we're business coaches at the end of the day. Gosh, Jim, you're talking about, what kind of business coach are you? You're talking about less profit. Like I can make more profit with my convenience fees. I get it. I know you can. The question is, does it make it more difficult for your customer to pay? And can you really say yes or no that it doesn't? When you say no, they can pay it and I get all this extra income. So it's like, it's again, if you look at it through a different lens, it's like, but is that income you really need? Are you making it more difficult for your customer to quote unquote perform on the loan, by
mhm.
putting those fees in there? So I think it's just a really important conversation for us to continue to have. And look, every indication is that buy here, pay here dealers are going to have more financial opportunity in the
Yeah,
coming year. So now it becomes a question of, are we interested in the customer's success, or are we going to take advantage? I mean, it's a simple question. But it's really fundamental in our industry. It's like we're in a position because the customer's disadvantaged. Are we then going to, pile on because we can, or are we going to
yeah,
really think long term?
yeah.
And so I think this is part of the thread that we always talk about. And so at the end of the day, you can say, so I kind of gave you a little insight. That is the kind of business coach that I am, and that Michelle and I are. Was we ask dealers to think long term and think about,
Mhm.
what does customer success look like? What does repeat and referral business look like for you? How much difference does that make in your business? And ultimately, that means helping the customer to be successful, get those payments in, and buy multiple cars, from you over time. And so that's kind of the approach. But anything on that before I move to down payment?
No, you know, what's worth more, and that's what's worth more to us. Are we not able to pay our utility bill at home because we're not charging those fees, because those fees could be something that tips the scales for our customers.
Yeah.
and makes it more difficult for them. And I think, I appreciated what you said about just because you can, and because there's nothing illegal about it right now for a lot of those things, but just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And there are other ways. There are other ways that are better and healthier for your business and your customer, to increase your cash flow and increase your profit
Sure.
than passing on and adding more fees. Because you think about just little things about um, efforts you make to help our customers be more successful and sticky. You move the needle 2% in your portfolio, and it's like it's a game changer. And 2% here and 2% there, and it's just little incremental things. Because you have a long game, those things, can you will put the extra money in and cash flow and profit and all of those things. But it's unfortunate when we want both.
Hmm.
How can I improve, and how can I improve, and how can I take more? And it's not. I just I want, businesses to be super successful, and to be, to be able to financially support your dreams and your ambitions and your goals and your lifestyle and all of those things. And sometimes we get caught up in the small little things, thinking that it's gonna, you know, that it's taking something away, if we
Yeah.
don't.
And listen, we haven't talked about this much lately. Excuse me. We can bring back a whole episode on this thing around, just cash flow versus profit, because, we're talking about different things, here and when you talk about cash flow and profit. And, we see in Facebook in particular, some of the Facebook groups, that there are a lot of newer dealers. They may be brand new, or, just a short time in the business. And one of the things we see with that is that they, are at a place where they're shaping their own, business strategy. And I would just say, even though it's intangible, it's hard to measure, I think we need to recognize the value of goodwill, like just the value of goodwill. For example, I'm a dealer who's been charging convenience fees. We've done that all the time. And what if I made an announcement to my entire portfolio, said, hey, in consideration of the, you know, uh, pressures in the economy and et cetera, we've made a business decision to eliminate convenience fees. And we're just announcing across our entire. And so what does that buy in terms of goodwill? Yes, I'm giving up that income, and I'm also helping my customers, be successful. Of course, I would wrap that message when I introduce that message. I would be saying, we're doing this in the interest of long-term success. We appreciate your business. We know this is, that it's a bit of a struggle, and we appreciate you getting your payments in. And in the interest of, your long-term success, we're going to reduce those fees. So I'm just saying the value of goodwill is worth something, and so we can invest some cash in that. And like I say, it's for me, it's mostly about the interest of helping the customer get those payments in. Like when we make it more difficult for the customer to pay. And I heard
Mhm.
one of the merchant providers in the space, and I've heard others talk about it too. Is like this is a time where it's really important for you to offer your customers as many convenient ways to pay as possible. And then this question of who should pay that? Like, who should, pay for those conveniences? Well, in my way of thinking about it, it's a cost of doing business. So it's like it's a cost of making it convenient for the customer to pay and make it easier for. So it's something that I would recommend. Now, price accordingly, whatever you need. If you need to set your interest rate differently, mark up differently, then
Mhm.
those are part of your fees of doing business. But it avoids nickel and diming, and it allows me to make it easy for the customer to pay whatever's agreed upon. But anyway, let me move over to the down payment thing, because that one's one that we don't talk about it enough, but there's this mindset around down payment that I think is it's gonna be it's gonna be a good while longer before many of these things that we're talking about now would change in terms of cost of car, economic conditions, and customer comes forward with a down payment. Pick a number. Customer's got $800 down, and they need a car. Their last car, they paid cash for it. It broke down, and they're in a tough spot. They need a car. They've got $800 down in my example, and you will hear dealers say, and this is one of the things that came up from a Facebook thread this week, is you hear dealers say, and this person's definitely not the first one to say it. It's like, but that down payment doesn't even cover my sales tax. So you would think, okay, well, that's a business matter. That's a cash management matter. If it doesn't fit in your business plan, and listen, we advise everybody to be disciplined in their business plan and stick to a cash and deal policy or cash, risk per contract. Certainly we have to be disciplined in that regard. But I think to think about down payment in relation to sales tax, as an example, is problematic. Because what if I said to you, Michelle, I'm a dealer, and I say to you, I won't do a deal. I won't do a deal if a down payment doesn't cover my sales tax, my GPS device, and my advertising cost per customer.
Okay.
Like those are all my costs. Those are all that's pretty arbitrary, right? So it's like it doesn't at the end of the day, it's really so I'm passing on a customer who may be well qualified. They may pay $500 a month for the next 10 years by buying multiple cars and being in our portfolio for a very long time. But I'm passing on them because the math doesn't work for me. And that's a different thing. Like that's where we got to be careful about. And the reason I bring this up now is that this conversation is not going away. Like we're going to be experiencing high car costs. Reconditioning costs have stabilized some. We had a problem with parts demands for a stretch, and that seems to be better, but we're still going to have high cost of car. And we're going to have tremendous opportunity in our space in the coming years here because we're seeing these lenders pull out. So now you got all this quote unquote C paper customer who's going to suffer credit wise, and they may become a D customer, but they still got great job time and great income. And so we're going to have a chance to do lots of business and some maybe high quantity, it may be higher quality, but we're going to have a chance to do more business. But our policy about down payment is something we got to be super careful about because it's a math question. If I cannot afford to finance a customer who seems to be, pretty stable and otherwise fits the program really well, they just happen to be
Yeah.
short on down payment. So because they're a few $100s short on down payment, whatever the number, I mean, my $800 may be well short for some dealers, but the point really is this is where we have opportunity to do more business when we can be adaptive about down payment. Obviously, there's some excellent
Mm-hmm.
underwriting software out there that helps, make a judgment and look at the customer
Risk.
the customer's
Yeah.
credit score. It looks at the deal structure. It looks at everything,
Vehicle, all of that.
the car itself, and so we have ways that we can. So really, it's a matter of cash, right? So we're right back to where do we find the cash? Because if that whole thing about if I get an $800 down payment from the customer, but my sales tax alone is $1,100, that's a cash problem, but it's not an underwriting problem. It's a cash matter. It's not those two things in my mind are not related. And we know that we're negative on the cash. The customer just knows I worked very hard to come up with this $800. This $800 represents, I'm picking numbers here today, but I'm just saying I worked very hard to come up with this dollar amount. It represents a serious commitment from me, and you can't or won't help me.
It's um, when we've talked to different dealers, and we know that you get the good down payments around tax time.
Mhm.
People are getting their tax money. We had a conversation with a colleague in the industry, and they were looking at trends and stats and all of that, and that when it's that um your likelihood of a default from a tax time sale with a high down payment is higher than a regular during the middle of the year, and it's like the hard-earned $500. Why is that?
Hmm.
Why is that? And so I think about, and we all can have our different reasons for that, but I think that's really something that's, for the strength of our business too. We may get that, but we're, especially during tax time, that we're going to be behind if we're making bad choices because they have the higher money to come in. But a lot of our customers, if they're coming in with $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, and you know what their income is, where are they coming up with that cash? Where have they robbed, or what are they pulling from other things to come up with this? And so these other things are hurting and will require that screaming, I need my money now in the future. And so when are they going to be pulling money from you to be able to do the person who's screaming for their money now? I mean, there's like payday loans. You borrowing money from grandma, and she needs it because it's like, I need the money now. I need the money because I've got this and this, or whatever it is, because we know that most of our customers are not good at saving. And so where are they coming up with the money when
Right.
they have these massive down payments? And it's just, I, you know, I'm not looking at the um bookkeeping and the bottom line and all of that. But when I see someone that comes in that works hard, that has a good job time, been in the residence for a long time, and they're working hard, and they come in with $500, and it's like that's what your payment's going to be, and you're able to do this. It just, to me, it's like that money, that $500 is usually from their own account.
Hmm.
And when you get a $2,500 down payment, whose account is that coming out of?
Right.
Because it's usually not going to be from their account, because we know that our customers have sold something, borrowed something, whatever, to be able to do that, and that you run a higher risk of it coming through, because everything has to cycle in and cycle out, and they're gonna your payment has a higher likelihood of being neglected to pay whatever off that they pulled money from.
Yeah, and we're also seeing dealers struggle a little bit with volume. Volume has kind of slowed in the fall for
Yeah,
some. Many of them are stable, but for some, volume has slowed. And I think what that does is it puts pressure on the process. And at least in buy here, pay here, we don't have the same pressures that a retail dealer would have in terms of the need to sell 15, 25 cars, whatever the number is. So in our case, we feel pressure if volume is low. We feel like we need to create contracts. And sometimes what happens, and there's a bit of a disconnect sometimes between the dealer and the sales team or whatever, and salespeople can, um, I call it over squeeze, like over squeeze the customer for down payment. Yes, there's more money on the table. Yes, the customers are withholding some money, and we can go get some. Sometimes when we over squeeze, we're neglecting the fact that we're 10 days away from the next rent payment coming due, and this is a
yeah,
bi-week paying
yeah,
customer. So we just have
yeah,
to be thoughtful and recognize what does it look like if we over squeeze and the customer says, yes, if I give you another 500, I can get into the car today. I'll do it. And now what does that look like for us if the customer now
yeah,
can't meet rent in 10 days? Where does that
exactly.
put us? And so we start out in a situation where customers struggling, and we kind of created some of that for ourselves. So, it's one of those things that I just think when we look at down payment, I think it's helpful to get our business model set up in a way that we've got the necessary capital. And listen, lenders and funding providers right now are having to make the same kind of adjustments. Like they're not doing as much business probably because their dealers can't do as much business. And so
Which
there's
is about a good segue for our topic on Wednesday, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, we got. By the way, just to pause and make sure folks know our upcoming Wednesday episodes. We have Russell Moore this coming Wednesday, right? And then we got
Mhm.
Seth Merrifield the week after that on Wednesday. So, tune in for those. We got some really fun conversations lined up and some important conversations around those things. But yeah, I would just say it's a time that we have to adjust. We're seeing dealers in there asking a lot of questions that are they're really indicative of this kind of the split in terms of business plan and business strategy, and folks aren't really thinking long term. You can hear that in some of the questions that come up, and I just think this is we talk about it all the time. Buy here, pay here. We really encourage playing the long game, but we think the short game is going to be really difficult. And buy here, pay here. For you're going to have plenty of opportunity, but your customers are going to struggle, financially for a period, and so we have to be adaptive, and we have to be adaptive in a couple of ways. It's going to be down payment. If we're going to continue to produce business, we probably need to be prepared to be adaptive with down payment. It might mean some external funding for you to make it all make sense. But I'm simply saying, when we have a well qualified customer standing in front of us who has an interest in financing with us, and all they're really short is some down payment, we really need to have a hard look at that and really ask ourselves, can I make that financial adjustment? Does it make sense for me? Again, it's a well qualified customer, good job time, decent income, stable in their residence, whatever. We're going to pass on that customer because they're, some percentage short on the down payment, and it's problematic. It's like we have to be careful. So I'm gonna take an unstable customer with that $2,500 down payment I'm looking for. It just there's some math there we got to work through. And so this is the part that, all dealers are wrestling with it. It's definitely a question. I would say that, there's an indication we should be able to see some more down payment from customers, but I still think it's a question of how do we there's another question I saw on Facebook this week is, somebody who's new to it doesn't have the software, they're not using technology, and so how do I make a judgment about underwriting? How should I make a judgment and approve customers? And like, wow, it's a tough time to make that judgment, and there's really great
Mhm.
software out there now to help with those things. So
Yeah.
we would recommend that. But I think when we talk about stuff from Facebook, Michelle, I think this becomes a 4-hour show. If, you know,
Just, we have people that ask all the time, how do you keep coming up with something to talk about? It's like
yeah.
it like social and questions that are out there, that it's and even the news,
Hmm.
it's rich with things that people are interested in and want to learn more about.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Tommy. Yeah, I thought about the dealer panel thing when they got the BHPH forum coming up in the middle of November in Indianapolis. For those of you who haven't booked, check I think it's 13th through 15th. It's a Monday through Wednesday in Indianapolis. So those of you who haven't popped in
Mhm.
there for that, you still got time to book a flight and go out there and hang out with Tommy Brandis. You can learn a lot from Tommy. So I would recommend that folks get there. The round tables are going to be really fruitful. Those are always, that's always good. And I would just say, when you get the most experienced dealers who have played the long game and are still around, let
Yeah.
them talk. Ask them questions and listen. We all
And yeah, and you will, though, even with the dealers that have been around for a long time, you will hear very different business models, and they've all been successful. And so, and that's, one of the things when we're talking about, what should I do? It's like every business model is different. Your goals are different. Are you looking for long-term equity, or you're looking for cash flow? What are your business models? But listen to all of the opinions, the things that have worked for different, and then find the one that works best for your model,
yeah,
and how you want to be able to deal with your customers, with our customers, and improve their experience, and the likelihood that you're going to see loans being paid. And
yeah,
yeah, it's I we are huge proponents for going to these opportunities to
sure,
learn more at the table of seasoned dealers, people
yeah.
that have been around, or people that have worked with dealers all across the country and have seen a lot of different things.
Right, and by the way, Florida's conference is in a week. Like, they've got a ton
Yeah,
of people there,
yeah,
so
we will not be there. So those of you that I told that we were going to be there
yeah,
a long time ago, we will not be there
he
for
fibbed.
Florida.
Yeah, Well,
I,
plans.
at the time, I
Well,
thought that we were, but
yeah.
it's not going to be happening this year, and we also will not be at the forum. But if you have the opportunity and can get away, it's going to be something that'll be well worth taking the time and the money to do that.
Um,
Absolutely.
one other question that I heard on Facebook this week, Michelle. Did you know that booby trap spelled backwards is party boob? Did you know that? Booby trap spelled backwards is party boob. I didn't know that. This is the kind of stuff that's a different Facebook group. That's like a different thread. So yeah, that's
My
not.
husband
Yeah,
is, yeah,
you shouldn't really
like,
give me a microphone. That's really a
I
big mistake.
should not, yeah,
Yeah.
especially when, those of you who made comments about the corn dogs and cake,
Yeah.
you leave Jim alone
Yeah.
with a freezer full of cake,
Yeah.
and that's what happens.
I'm like that joke about, I don't really know that I'm adult enough to be unsupervised. I don't think that's a good idea. So, yeah. Plus I have no
Exactly.
willpower when it comes to the sweet
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, we should let folks get
All
back
right.
to their, work stuff. There's a lot of work to
Yeah.
do, lots of
Happy
opportunity in
Monday.
here. Yeah, and, by the way, the leaves are falling here in, Utah. When you return, you will see lots of leaves on the patio, and it's starting to be fall. And I will survive the winter on pumpkin spice. I'll get through it.
Oh, I haven't had one of those yet,
Oh, yeah?
and yeah, I think it's time. Facebook user, I have an idea of who that is. Send a picture of your smoked old fashioned, post it on
Yeah. I'd
Facebook,
like to know
and
who that is. We'll see it.
yeah, and will. I'd love to get a smoker. That would be a great Christmas present.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Like, what it's
Wait, are
for
you
smoke.
hinting for me to get one for you? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
great.
Uh, it's been a minute since we had one of those. We better find our way to a smoked old fashioned.
We haven't really found one close to us that does them and
Yeah,
does them well.
yeah,
Mhm.
somebody else
We have to
mentioned
go
that
to
just now.
Metropolis.
Yeah,
Yeah, big areas. So
yeah,
Salt Lake does, but we don't get down to Salt Lake very often.
yeah.
So
So why don't
yeah,
let's wrap up and you can get
I
yourself
knew it was
packing,
George.
yourself. Yeah. Oh, George, there you go. Yeah, that's cool. We hope it works out. I know, Anthony, his son, who works with him in the business, also mentioned the
Uh,
smoke fashion. So yeah,
yeah,
that sounds like, we're gonna miss that. But,
yeah.
yeah, sorry we'll miss, Florida, but we're kind of excited to be home and be able to catch up on different projects at home and projects with work. And so it's gonna
Got
be
a lot of projects,
fourth quarter's
business
gonna be.
projects and things, and just trying to wrap up the year before we hit 2020. What is 2024? I keep losing, right? It's
Yeah,
2024.
yeah,
It's just a couple months away. So yeah, I'll be watching all of the pictures from FIADA, and oh, look, so and so's there. And so
mhm.
post the pictures, and I hope you all have a wonderful conference next week. It's
Yeah.
next week. Next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember 31st is included. I remember it happens over,
Oh, for
Halloween. So,
Halloween.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
All
so
right, guys.
we'll,
Have a
uh,
have a great rest of your or a great week this week, guys. And yeah, take a look a little bit differently at deals that come across your desk with lower down payments, and
mhm.
then see if you might be able to approve a few extras.
Yeah, lots of opportunity. Let's do business.
All right, we'll
All
talk
right.
to y'all later. Thank you guys for joining.